Hello guys and welcome to the PiG Daily. It is episode number 58 and today we're going to be talking about Zerg. No, we're not going to be talking about Zerg, we're going to be talking about all the races. It's more of a conceptual episode. We're going to talk about controlling your multi-prong aggression. So I actually sent out the topic on Twitter asking people for questions. I've got a lot of really good questions to answer. A lot of people were kind of asking how to defend multi-prong aggression. That's not what we're going to focus on today. It's all going to be about how do you actually execute it? Where do you put your attention? What are a few mechanical techniques to make sure that you don't actually have to just manually control everything at once, which is obviously a big misconception. Everyone's like, oh my God, this guy's microing 5 drops at once. It's like, no, most of that stuff's queued up. A lot of things are just timed out very well. I think timing is one of the more important things. So it should be an interesting episode. I don't think we're not gonna like do an absolutely crazy exhaustive topic, sticking in my recent vein of trying to actually compress the information so people with lives can watch it just as much as the people like myself who have all the time in the world to talk and think about StarCraft. So, all right, guys, let's... In terms of the topic, we are going to explain stuff for beginners as well. This isn't a beginner's basics episode though, because I'm pretty sure some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about and doing, I've seen players in Master League who still don't do it. The much more defensive or front-on focused players. There's players who get really high on ladder without ever really utilizing counterattacks or multi-prong or drops very much. So I feel like this is something which will have a broad use, but some things we will explain in very basic terms, other things a little bit more advanced. So, all right. What we're going to look at is just a replay from the other day. We are looking at one of my Terran replays, and part of the reason we're looking at this is because I feel like Terran's a very aggressive race. It's probably the race which relies the most on you actually having to just attack. You almost always have some sort of timer where, unless you're that very rare breed of Terran who actually wants to go to late game, you're like, I want to kill him before this kicks in. Like, I want to get into the Protoss before Storm finishes. I want to get into the Zerg before Ultras finish. I want to get into this Terran before he drops his tanks on me and I have to react to it, which is twice as hard as attacking to it. So Terran's a very aggressive race, but the exact same things we're going to talk about apply to every race. It's all conceptual. This is stuff you can apply to Adepts, you can apply it to Zergling, Baneling run-bys, whatever the hell you want to. So let's dive on into game. And as always, guys, do shout out questions. Do shout out questions as things are happening, as the episode's happening, with the @x5_pig tag, and I will try to answer those at the end. So, first of all, guys, I wanted to talk about this idea of, let's just make sure the game sound doesn't get crazy once the fighting starts. So, what we're going to see here is an attack. Now, we're just watching on my camera, because obviously that's what this is all about, where this is... from when I was practicing Kellerzer's Kitchen Sink TVP. Kind of silly name for a build, which is one where you just go crazy with aggression and harassment. And you'll notice that I just queued up a drop to hit the main. I sent a Banshee into the natural. And all of my focus is on this army at the front, because it's the most important. I do get... So I just make sure those units are actually killing workers, which they were. I checked the natural, realized it wasn't a scary attack, counter-attack from him. And I focus back on my main army, which is most important. Still not the best disruptor dodges. I look back to check my other units are doing their damage. I am, quote-unquote, losing the battle on the front, but because I'm doing massive damage in the main and natural, it's all fine. I focus fire those Marines on that Templar Archives. Liberator's still being a giant bag of dicks down here, which is basically the Liberator's purpose in life. I just queued up that Liberator to go, the new one that arrived, to go around and siege up the back of the third, because I realized just how much damage he's taken and how unprepared and, you know, unready he is for everything. Pick up these 3 Marines, drop them over here. It's a Protoss nightmare, kids. And you can see in that worker count down the bottom that even though our main army control has not been the most perfect thing by any means, and... he had some really nice disruptor shots. At the end of the day, we've wiped out this whole 3-base economy. And, GG. Wow. I'm a real pro gamer, guys. Now, why am I looking at this? It's just because this is the first example of a replay I played recently where I was like, okay, I'm hitting 3 places at once, and I'm not really microing them all a lot. So what's really important, and the first thing you have to always think about, we just showed it, we're gonna rewatch that several times, is have a plan before you go in. Now this is the number one thing that happens to people is they're like, you know what? I was watching a stream yesterday and this pro gamer attacked from 3 places. Maybe I should do that. And they're kind of like in the spot in the heated battle when they're trying to macro, they like formulate this like really haphazard plan, and or they don't really have a plan. They just kind of like grab units, just send them to attack from multiple angles. And they ignore, the fact that the timing is important. They don't queue things up. They're trying to manually control everything, so they get distracted and all their drops just fly in and die because they're not queued up at all. All this sort of like just shit falls apart. And that's why it's very important to have a tight plan around, okay, these are the prongs of my army. And this is something you get faster and better at with experience, right? Like next time I'm in this situation in TVP, I'm going to be like, you know what? I think a single dropship into the main and a single banshee into the natural while my army hits the front is a fantastic way to do that. I didn't think I actually turned my Twitch alerts back on, but apparently I did. One sec. Alert box follows. Oh, that was my sub. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the sub, mate. So anyway, guys, yeah. So basically, you want to be looking at this, and we'll watch it once more from my point of view
Our SCVs
while I keep talking about these concepts. All right. So in this case, the plan is hit the main with a drop, banshee into the natural, and hold position with both of them, and full focus in front of micro. So first of all, hold position micro is what we're going to be talking about here. So now what a lot of people don't realize is you can queue things up from insanely far away. So first of all, let's actually, I might as well, with a drop, by the way, if you ever load units into a dropship, you can just tell all your dropships to drop away and then just deselect that. Or for me, I will steal the dropship onto a different hotkey, and that can be very nice. You've also then got to re-hotkey your main army to make sure the units inside the medevac are taken out of your hotkey. But notice, you can see I just queued this medevac up to go all the way around, and I've actually queued it up to drop in here as well. And my plan, once those units are unloaded, is simply to look at these Marines. Let's fast forward and look. Box them, stim them, move them into the mineral line, hold position. And hold position micro is pretty amazing for this. So look at this. Absolutely no micro here, no APM. We'll see it in a moment. You can tell I'm no god of multitasking. They move up and hold position. This guy is running around because I failed at telling him to hold position. Well, I told them to like move and then hold position. So I'm pretty sure I did anyway. I usually would do this. Let's see.
Base is under attack.
Looks like I just told them once they were there. But anyway, basically you can tell them to hold position. Now, why do you want to hold position first of all? The reason is, otherwise your units are going to try to fight their fighting units, and it's not important for your counterattack aggression to kill their army. You're never going to kill their army. Yes, if you look and you identify there's only a single stalker or adept, great, you can target fire it if you want, but you know what? Hold position Marines and units will do that themselves. So a lot of people know about hold position Zerglings, so they focus the probes, but even with ranged units, what you'll often find is if you don't hold position them, they'll see a single enemy fighting unit and they'll all start trying to kind of shove past each other to get in between the minerals and the gas or in between some buildings, and they'll waste their time fighting these other units. Now, obviously, you want to focus workers because workers only ever have 40 or 45 hit points, and they cost 50 minerals, whereas take another basic unit, a Zealot has 150, almost 4 times the hit points for only double the mineral cost. So your efficiency gets cut in half in terms of how much you're actually killing, how much damage you're doing per the amount of damage output. So if you're killing workers, it's always the most valuable usage of your time. So here, for instance, in this particular scenario, if I don't hold position them, say he comes back with some adepts, my Marines are going to try and like run through these little choke points. They're going to get stuck here between the minerals and gas, here between the minerals. Unless I'm manually microing them forward and stutter stepping them, they're also going to like get stuck, you know, up against this Templar archives. Shit's just going to get awkward. So what I want to do is, like I said, stim, right-click, Shift-H. Shift for hold position. That way, they're in range of the full mineral line. Even if a unit comes in, they're not going to bother chasing it. Even if the guys at the front start shooting it, the guys at the back will still just kill whatever workers are within range. And this is the lazy man's version of queuing up your attacks on the individual probes. Definitely, if you don't have much going on at the same time, if you don't have a big three-pronged attack, if you're not worried about disruptors blasting the crap out of your army on the front, yes, it would be worthwhile stimming and queuing up these attacks on the probes. But in this scenario, I'm like, nah, shift hold position. Now, I've already actually given that command with this Banshee as well. From even earlier, same thing. I've literally just gone cloak, right click, shift hold position. That's it. Don't want it chasing stalkers, just want it to kill probes, be annoying. And this means it's going to require the absolute minimum of micro. So watch this Banshee. We'll fast forward. It literally just chills there. Maybe I didn't hold position that time. I think, oh no, I A moved it about halfway through there. You guys remember when I came back and actually controlled that? Yeah. Which is why he started moving. And then we see like, oh, you nub. You nubbed it, man. Now, I'm not sure if in Game Heart, this is my first time using Game Heart, if we can actually see the command card somehow to see if the unit's on hold position or move. I'll check that out for next time. But anyway, that's some important stuff. So let's go back to that. So number one, have a plan and use queuing up as much as possible. You can queue up hold position. You don't need to wait till the unit's there, and that's going to be fantastic. Likewise, of course, if you've already got vision of the workers, you could just queue up attack commands, say with the Banshee on the probes. That can work as well. All right, so the important thing is also to time all of this out very well. So in terms of your plan, you want to have an idea of what's most important in your attack and where you want to hit first. And usually you want to follow the structure of you hit with the less important prongs first to pull your opponent's attention away, force a reaction, and then the last prong that hits is your most important prong. Now, that being said, I'm not saying it's a minute later. It's like 5 seconds later, 2 seconds later. Literally, the ideal multi-prong, you hit one place, 1 second, within a second you hit somewhere else, and within at most 5 seconds, the main important thrust of your army comes in. Now keep in mind, this isn't always that your main army is the most important thing. Sometimes you say, I actually don't want to take a front-on fight right now in the game. I think it's a bad point for my army to fight, but I think I have the opportunity to do harassment damage. In that scenario, you turn it around. Your main army will actually come in first. It's like, hey, I'm threatening, I'm the main army. They're like, oh shit, that's the main army. I've really got to react. I've got to treat this seriously. And then your drops hit. Your Banshees come in from behind. Your Adepts run into the base. So you've got to rotate that because what you're focusing on there is your opponent's focus. You want to pull their focus to the least important thing for them while they're distracted from what is going to be doing the most damage to them. In this particular scenario, if we watch from the start one more time, you guys are going to see that I am going to decide it's my main army. I really want to push him. This is a pretty all-in build, so I don't have any upgrades, right? I don't even have an eBay, I think. Greedy boys. So you'll notice I've decided here, I'm like, this is my main army. These guys are just grouped up. Notice how throughout this setup, all my attention was focused on the main army, and then only as my medevac gets into position where it's it's equidistant. I don't know, man. Sometimes I just can't speak. I want to send the Banshee in because I want that Banshee, remember, and the medevac. These are both the least important prongs. I want those to hit at the exact same moment if possible. So notice I'm sending that Banshee in. There we go. Send the Banshee in. Breaking down these rocks. So I've timed this out, so these rocks are going to go down. And notice on that mini-map, these guys are hitting. So just seconds later, this moves in. He's distracted. He's not in position. Obviously, he didn't have vision as well with his observer, which was a pretty big screw-up. This is a pretty textbook situation for this. It won't always be so clean. And then we also get to see a few other concepts. So we want to distract, pull attention away with those least important prongs, but you want to allow your most important, powerful prong to do the most damage. Now, keep in mind, there was a moment there where I decided, well, I don't have anything to micro with my main army. Let's look away. And that brings us on to the next point, which is you can't actively control all 3 prongs of an attack, even all 2 prongs. Sometimes you're in 5 places at once. You just can't do it. So notice here, I start checking both of my harassments. Why did I do that then? I said they're not important. Remember, I did need to stim an A move and make sure those Marines are in position because you can't queue up your Marines to stim and hold position from inside a medevac, even though you can actually drop individual units. And I just wanted to check the Banshee wasn't getting killed as well. Now, if I was already in a main fight...
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, thank you, Ayakimi. Kamiki. But if I wasn't in the... if I was in a main engagement down here, I would fully focus on this. I'd let the Banshees and Marines just do their thing. Even though they're not being the most valuable because I haven't stimmed the Marines. But because I get this position, and I'm kind of in this passive pre-spread where it's not that important for me to look, like he's not even engaging me, I'm like, oh, cool, I've got a few seconds spare, let's look away. Stim, move in there and hold position. Make sure my Banshee's doing its job. Yep, cool. Oh, there's a counterattack. Okay, make sure I've dealt with that. Now look back at the main army, and you notice all my focus is going to be on my main army here. Don't care about my counterattacks at all. Making sure I set up my concave, fight with my Widow Mines. But then I look away. And this is that decision which people really struggle with. And obviously this is not something you can just magically figure out. It takes a lot of experience. But when the hell do you look away? When do you do this? And you've got to figure out, when is it not worth looking at your units anymore? When does it become more worthwhile to be doing other things? And we just identified one of those moments right here, guys. So at this moment, we've got lots of army. We need to spread against disruptor shots. We don't do a very good job of it, but we do an okay. It's not the worst job. But at this point, all the disruptor shots are down. We don't have a lot of bio left. It's already pre-spread in a concave. Our Widow Mines are already burrowed. There is literally nothing for us to micro here. Or for me to micro here. I always talk like we're a collective, like you guys are all playing with me. You're actually not, and I know I sound like a crazy person, so I'll probably try and stop with that one. But yeah, there's just nothing to micro here, right? Like, what can I possibly micro in the next few seconds? I could run away, but I felt like staying there and fighting because I knew I was doing good damage in the rest of his bases. I wanted to keep him occupied. But what we notice is I wasn't on my own camera then. So let's go back to my camera. So, splitting, lots of APM spent down here, really focusing on our micro, our control. Or my micro, my control. And, okay, I've got nothing left there to micro. Bam, instantly, looks into the main, stims those units, makes sure the Banshee moves in to kill a few more probes. And only then I realize, oh, there's actually not that much to micro down here or here. Only then do I look back at my main army and go, alright, let's keep microing this. Let's set up some libs that have just arrived. Let's kind of do that. And that prioritization is very important. So here we see another moment where normally, once you get down to 2 or 3 Marines, it's really not worth looking at. The only reason I end up microing that in this scenario is because I've got literally nothing left at the front except a Liberator and a couple Widow Mines. So you notice I'm like, oh, I guess I just will keep microing here, whatevs. You know, I'm just rallying units. All my macro is done off my my hotkeys. But most of the time, looking at 3 Marines like I just did, that is an utter waste of APM. Absolute waste. So this is something you have to start getting really good at kind of judging for yourself each situation on its own and saying, when do the units become not worth my APM? I mentioned in that frontal fight, the point where your units are pre-spread, there's no splash damage to spread against because all the disruptor shots we use, it's like, nah, there's just nothing to look at here, man. Likewise, often, when you get down to 2 Marines left in a drop or a single Marine, sometimes I see players and they're like, yeah, this one Marine killed 6 drones over like 4 minutes of microing it around as an annoying drop. And it's like, yes, your opponent screwed up. Yes, they're probably a bit tilted that 1 Marine killed 6 drones. On the other hand, you're floating 2,000 minerals and you copped a bad disruptor shot. You know, you copped a bad fungal corrosive bile while that was happening. Like, you've got to divvy up that attention and say 90% of the time, it's not worth microing 1, 2, or 3 Marines in a drop, other than the most rudimentary micro. In this particular scenario, I know my opponent's kind of struggling. He's taken massive eco damage. And I don't have much to micro on the front, so I actually make the call of saying it's worthwhile. But most of the time, you don't want to be wasting a lot of APM on that stuff. Back on my camera. So I see here, okay, Banshee's going to try and avoid those Stalkers. Oh, let's see if we can save these Marines. Cool, we're going to boost those up. And they join up with this queued up lib. And it all works out very nicely. Look back at the main army, which becomes important now because there's nothing to micro down here. Like, those units are just going to do their job. So from here, the next 30 seconds, all of our attention can be on the front. Let's put it back on faster speed. Focus firing the probes because we don't have much else to focus on. And that is how that goes. So, we talked about sending in the less important prongs first to distract and pull your enemy's attention away. We talked about queuing units up. We talked about using hold position. Of course, you can focus fire as well. You don't need to just hold position, but hold position's the lazy man's way. Keep in mind, guys, you use that with Zerglings. You use that with the Depths. Any unit, really. Like, I use it with Roaches all the time. I see a lot of players struggling to like click on every drone, you know, A click, and it's like really hard to do that when you're dealing with a lot of other things. So hold position, and especially shift hold position, you know, I'm the god of set and forget. Just put your shit down and forget about it. This is why I love Liberators so much as well, actually. Also, guys, we're not actively controlling all three. So, like I said, the most important amount of your APM and your micro, always everything comes back to your plan. Remember, in this scenario, my main army was the main plan. I wanted to get that in there and trade with it and do damage and try to kill my opponent because I was doing a 2-base all-in versus a 3-base Protoss. So I put the minimum amount of APM and control on the Banshee and the drop. It was literally like, just queue them up. If they get snapped, there's like Stalkers and Knobs ready. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, you know, it's not as important as my main army dodging the disruptor shots, my main army getting in position. So there's that prioritization, which is very important. What else have we got here in our notes as important things? Focusing on the most important part. Yep. Something like Roach Hydra is a good example of an army where it's like, you literally just spread it out a little bit or get it into a concave and A move. And then you just go and inject and do other things because like there's so little for you to micro in engagements with Roach Hydra most of the time. So yeah, you've got to identify like certain compositions. It always plays out a little bit differently. Like you're playing Ling Bane against Biomine. It's like, well, you're going to stare at your army because you need to spread against Widow Mines constantly. Like, you're like, nah, I'm just going to A-move and look away, and you're going to lose, like, you know, 100 Banelings and Zerglings just to Widow Mine shots. So every situation's a little bit different. As always in StarCraft, you've got to use your own logic, your own understanding. Definitely as well, we also talked about, you know, when units are just below the line of it being worth your APM to actually micro them. In this particular scenario, we got to see that rare scenario where it was kind of worthwhile to keep microing those Marines. But most of the time, it's better to just let that die, especially if you're not a super high APM player, and focus on the more important things. I know a lot of players are like, oh, I can't just micro everything perfectly, you know, Terran's too hard, or this particular strategy is too hard. But what I often see from players is I see players like Major, who's this like super high level Terran player, really great player, and half the time his harassment units just like run in and die. Like, and you're like, oh, whoa, what the hell? But his macro is so good behind it because he's prioritizing. And when he does think the harassment is very important to control, he micros it very well and gets the value out of it. And if someone at such a high level as Major, you know, can do that, you guys in Platinum, in Diamond, whatever league you are, you can afford to just lose units sometimes as long as your priorities are good and you don't get tilted because you miscontrolled something. Okay, cool, guys. So I'm going to actually hop into a unit tester and show you guys a really nifty little trick as well. This is something I've used like maybe in 5 games ever playing as Terran. Actually, I've used it as Zerg before. I've probably used this like 20 times. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys this while I start answering questions. Now, there's a lot of great questions on Twitter. So I'm going to start with those ones, and then I'm going to move into the ones in chat. At the same time, I'm going to go into Arcade and get unit tester open. A lot of unit tester made by Brandon is normally the one which I trust and rely on. Okay. All right, we have a question from Char, 1980. He says, if you're hitting an expo doing drops and pushing in the front door, when do you leave things managing themselves and when to micro them or pull them out? Okay, well, that's basically what we just answered in terms of how to distribute your units and how to not stare on them and how to always have that game plan of what's most important. So I think we already answered that question. Chiriqui says, how to sync attacks to make it harder to read and react for the opponent. So we already talked about that as well. Awesome. Okay, I think I already answered most of these questions, actually. Cool. I'll show you guys that trick at the end of the questions. Multi-prong aggression, if different hit squads move at different speeds. Is there advice on how you can sync up units that have different speeds? Definitely, that's why you'll notice you always queue units up kind of outside your opponent's base. Like, you'll notice how in that game, for instance, my medevac had to fly very far around the edge of the map to get in position. My Banshee was already waiting. So my Banshee waited just outside the natural, and I waited until the medevac was getting close, and then I sent it in at the same time. And you're never going to be exact. Obviously, you need a bit of personal judgment, but if you always just pause like the first bit of the prong and just make sure you wait until the other pieces of the prong are in position and then you manually send them in at once, that's very important. A lot of people get lazy and they just queue up their counterattacks to go right in from their side of the map. Like, I see people queue up like 80 Zerglings and they say, you guys attack to this, like go around the edge of the map, go waypoint, A move into the natural. And then it's like timed out, so there's no other distractions happening at the same time when it goes in, and the Zerglings are all spread out in this long column rather than in a big ball that hits really hard. And it's just like, oh, the counterattack, it's just not as strong if you're going to be doing multi-prong like that. It's much better to wait with it just outside of their vision, kind of like just a little bit out, and then send it in at the same time as something else is happening. Interesting question. Oh, actually, we've got a good one from Ace. He says, how do you hotkey when you're multi-prong aggression? Using multi-prong aggression? Well, preferably you do hotkey at least one of your prongs. A lot of the time, it kind of, for me, it'll come down into order of importance. Like, I've got my main army, might have supporting units with it. So I've got 2 control groups for my army. For me, I use 4 army control groups. I've got other ones for creep queens and buildings and evo chambers and all this stuff, but I've got 4 for my army, right? So I might have 2 for my main army. 1 for, say, Zergling, Baneling, 1 for Muters, something like that. Or maybe Marine Marauders and Liberators. And then I've got, okay, 3rd hotkey for 1 drop, and preferably, if I can remember to do it, 4th hotkey for the other. But it really comes down to how many hotkeys you're used to using. If you're not used to using extra hotkeys, you can not control those, and that's where you need to get just good at clicking on the minimap to zoom around and actually have a nice look at things. So let's take a look in game, by the way, where you need to be quickly going, oh, send in, oh, send in, and doing that sort of stuff. So that can make a very big difference. Fatality says, where do you position your reinforcements at home for a Terran player when you are out on the map attacking? Normally just outside your natural, in between your natural and 3rd, but it does depend on the situation. If your opponent's prone to sending big, huge counterattacks, you don't have a lot of map vision, you usually do want to have your reinforcements behind your wall to make sure you don't just get completely overwhelmed. So guys, we're going to take a little break in the questions so I can show you guys a cute little trick. And I know there's going to be people being like, you are such an idiot. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But what I'm going to show is how you can actually queue up dropping individual units. And I've used this in games before. Oh, whoops. Sorry. I think I clicked on the same one.
In the pipe, 5x5. Understood.
Check it. Whoa. It just dropped and picked back up. Why did it pick back up? That's confusing. Is this unit tester broken?
Heading out.
It was making the drop sound, but for some reason it wasn't dropping. Trust me, this works on ladder and in normal games, guys. There we go.
Life flights here. Inbound.
Wait a second.
I heard that.
Okay, there we go. So it's actually working now. So basically, by just clicking down here, you can actually queue up dropping individual Widow Mines. Oh, come on, man. This is tilting me, man. It keeps picking them back up. This map's broken, and now I'm really mad because that just ruined my whole demonstration. Trust me, if you actually queue up, you can drop individual units in different bases, and this is something I use in very niche situations. So basically, what you can do is you can drop, say, a Widow Mine off a single medevac. You can drop 3 Widow Mines, 1 in their main, natural, and 3rd. And this is something you do when a game is like crazy messy and you're like, oh, there's too much shit going on. And you know you're not really going to have time to babysit it. So then you can just look back at their base at once and you can just go burrow, burrow, burrow. And then go back to doing your shit. You can also use this in those crazy messy games to say drop a marine in each base, just to force their minimap to have those big red radiating where under attack circles kind of bouncing out on their minimap, and they're like, whoa, information overload. It's one of those things you literally use as like a super momentum tempo tool in order to tilt your opponent, so that you can just give the order to drop in multiple places at once using that shift command, and then it works all at once suddenly, and it's pretty sick. All right. And there's a lot of questions about how to defend multi-prong aggression, but I don't want to answer those in this. This one's all about how to control it and execute it. Star Traveler says, actually, the unit tester is buggy. Maybe I should have hosted up the other unit tester then rather than the Brandon one, because there's a new one by Excelsior or something, which has like even more 5-star reviews. So I should probably have hosted up that one. Whatevs. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. How many other questions do we have? We've got a few questions here in Twitch chat. Booyah says, Star Traveler says, Pig, can you show replay with control groups visible? I mean, I can, but I don't use the regular control groups, so yeah. Okay, I'll see if there's a way to do that in Game Heart. I'm just getting used to Game Heart for the moment. Boolia says, I'm queuing Ling drops versus Protoss while my army attacks with the hold command. Should I drop roaches or hydras? I think you mean with the shift command, Boolia. Oh, you mean like once the Lings are dropped, you hold position them in a mineral line? That's cool. I'm queuing Ling drops versus Protoss. Should I drop roaches or hydras? But you're dropping the Zerglings. So why? I think you should just keep dropping Zerglings. Zerglings are really cheap and awesome. Even just dropping 8 Zerglings on their main, 8 Zerglings on their natural while you hit the front against Protoss is sick. It forces a big reaction, and a lot of players will panic and make mistakes and take a lot of damage. We've got another question here from Eon Blue. He says, a better way to word it is saying that you can use resources to take away attention from your opponent. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like that way of doing it. I think the better way is you're distracting them, because that's like exactly what it is. I know people love that explanation. There's like, using your resources to take away their attention, or attention is a resource. And it's like, well, yeah, I don't know. To me, that seems like the most like blatantly obvious thing. It makes sense, though. I guess that is something which we should explicitly say. Anyway, it's semantics at this point. Boolia says, what's the best way of getting to micro the small attacks, like hold position? To use camera hotkeys, separate control groups, or is there any other way? You can separately control group them. That's the only thing I would do. No camera hotkeys. Otherwise, it's always either manual control or using a control group, one or the other. And those are the absolute only ways you do it. Diamond Tie says, how many attacks should you launch at a time? Does it depend on your league? Depends on the situation, your own skill set. If you're literally going to spend like 6 minutes trying to set up a 5-prong attack, it's not worthwhile. So you've got to make that decision yourself. It's always a value judgment based on your own assessment of what you can feel that you can kind of get value out of. Like you're like, I'll kind of be able to make sure these units all do what they're meant to. I don't need to super focus on them, but like this is my limit. If I do any more, I'm just going to start messing up and queuing them into the wrong bases and kind of screwing up. So I think it's one of these kind of situations where you just want to really base it on your own strengths and your own judgment of the situation. Like, for instance, in that situation, the Banshee is super low APM requirement, right? I can send a Banshee in, super chill, don't care about it. I'm just going to hold position out of the mineral line. I know it forces an observer over there. 2 thumbs up. Likewise, drop in the main, it's just a stim and an A move. It's a bit more micro-intensive, still not absolutely massive. However, if I send 4 drops into the main, 2 drops into the natural while hitting the front with my main army, that is beyond my multitasking. I can't do that because all of those units need too much control. I know I'm gonna choke and run some medevacs into their death. Like I'm just gonna screw it up. So I personally know that I'm not experienced enough with Terran to drop like 3 big drops in different locations at once, or I'm going to screw up and lose all my army. So you got to make that judgment based on your own strengths, and you'll find that it does work really well. All right, guys, so thank you very much for hanging out. I think that's a pretty good, reasonably comprehensive way of the structure of how to organize your aggression. Keep in mind, if you're trying to do this at home, Practice makes perfect. Same as everything in StarCraft. The more times you do it, the better you get at it. So watch a replay and say, you know what, I mistimed these 2 prongs to hit. Or you know what, in this scenario, my main army was the most important part, and yet I wasn't looking at it. I was looking at the unimportant drop, and I took a really bad engage. So now that you've got this structure, you've got to remember these fundaments of multi-prong aggression and just how bloody important they are. Number 1, queue things up. Number 2, number 1, have a plan. Above all things, have a clear set plan and an order of the importance of the prongs of your army. Next up, queue things up. Don't actively micro everything. 3, don't keep staring at everything and trying to micro it past the point of its usefulness. If there's 1 or 2 Marines left, just ignore it, let it die, run the medevac away, or just let it die. Who cares? You've got better things to do with your APM. So prioritize with your APM. And I guarantee you, when you first start out doing this aggression, these multi-prong, like hitting from all sides, you're going to mess up and you're going to focus on the wrong things. You're going to get excited, and you're going to panic, and you're going to just stare at the one bit too much. But as you play it out a few times, you start to find this sort of rhythm and this pattern. And you also start to get really in tune of the fact, like, remember the timing of the prongs. The 2 unimportant prongs go in, pull your opponent's attention away, and then the main thrust of the army hits. And you can actually, as you're playing, feel your opponent just not watching where they need to be watching. And that's one of the best feelings. That's where you really start to understand how to pull your opponent's APM around, pull their attention around, and mess them up. So that's awesome. All right, guys, thank you very much for hanging out. I really appreciate all the support. I think that's a pretty decent episode. Of course, I can talk about trying to defend multi-prong aggression at a future phase. For now, guys, I'm going to keep laddering if you're on Twitch, but if you're on YouTube, I do appreciate the support. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course, punch a watermelon to the moon. I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.